welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week's episode of the program, we'll continue our conversation on the centenary celebration of the International Labour Organization. We will be right back.
After working for 14-15 years, we did not commit any fraud. And after such long year of service, instead of you rewarding our loyalty, you are sending us back to Labour with peanuts. They told us that they've made a palliative measure in place, and at the end of the day, they are asking us that if you are below 35, that you can come as a full staff. Please, my sister, if somebody is being employed at the age of 25, 26, and you have spent 15 years, how can that person be 35 years? Is that not lack of integrity? And you are telling the whole world that you have put palliative measure in place. They lack integrity. It must go down. You should pay us our entitlement. Enough of slavery.
I have worked for EcoBank for the past 12 years as a contract staff. We've done everything they have asked us to do. I have upgraded myself, thinking that I'll be converted, and all this while nothing has happened. And at the end of the day, on Friday, last week, we were asked to leave. And before that, after the whole work on that day, we were asked to drop our ID cards and just leave like that. That's very unfair for someone that has labored for you for 12 years. Some people worked for 23, 26 years. I had a colleague that died on the job.
Somebody died last week.
The day she died, nobody in the branch who were working. I was the only one that went there for the burial. Not even a dime was given to the family. Not even a dime was given to the family. How can you ask people to go like that without preparing them, without giving them anything? How do you want us to survive? How do you want us to take care of our families? For 20 years, you're giving people 200,000 naira, 160,000 naira, 85,000 naira, 75,000 naira for serving your bank.
I've been at the bank for a couple of years, and just last Friday we were asked to all leave. Reason best known to them, and the terms and condition at which we're asked to leave is not being fulfilled. We've seen part of my colleagues that have spent 15, 12, 10 years in the system, and what we're paid is nothing to write home about. Giving us like 120k, 100,000, 80,000. The most annoying part is they said those are enters from 2015 downwards. That's like 2015 to 2019. They will just go like that without nothing except their salary, which we think is very, very wrong. Very, very wrong.
I have worked with this bank right from the time of Oceanic. And 2 years ago, we were asked to sign a contract. We were promised that by the time we are leaving, we will be living happily. We'll be able to set up ourselves. At that time, they will ask the drivers to leave. And the official cars they were driving at that time, they gave them. So they gave us an impression that we are better than the drivers. So by then, by the time we are going, we'll go happily. But lo and behold, on Friday they asked us to go. The contract was supposed to expire 31st of July. But unfortunately, they asked us to go on the 5th of July. So they are supposed to pay us 1 month in lieu. That is August salary. They only pay for this month. We have worked this month. They only pay for this month. And I don't know the severance that they package. You can imagine I've worked with them for 7 years. What they gave me is not up to 250,000. If I have to go to my village now, you know what they call Aje Egboro. If I call Aje Egboro, come and pack my things, I'm going to my village. I'm not sure that is enough. So I don't know where the management of this bank want me to start from. Honestly, I am happy to leave the work. I am very, very happy. But I'm only asking for them to pay me what belongs to me.
That was the experience of ex-workers of EcoBank who served the financial institution for more than a decade before they were disengaged. Members of the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Nigeria Union of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions employees picketed the headquarters of EcoBank on Victoria Island, Lagos, to demand for a better severance package for the dismissed workers.
Those who have used all their youthful years, that work for 15, 20, 25 years, not because they don't know the job, not because they don't have the wherewithal knowledge, but because of the corruption in the highest level, they lay them off with 120,000 naira.
we want to do this thing to bring to a public domain, to say we will not continue to fold our hands and listen to our members every day. And that is why today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, we are going to show them solidarity.
The unions accused the management of the bank of unfair labor practice such as unfriendly environment, victimization of outsourced staff by the core staff, non-payment of pension and denial of HMOUs in the hospital. Other issues raised by the workers include non-availability of protective wears for dispatch riders, poor salaries, and indiscriminate sacking of staff without consulting the union. The management in a mail sent to media houses indicated that EcoBank did not disengage its staff, but I observed that the mail did not bear the signature of any bank staff or logo of the organization. The bank in a statement continued that it decided to renew the contract of its third-party recruitment agencies, which expired recently, and as such, returned this category of personnel to their original employers. It concluded that as part of its business strategies, the bank is investing in the employment of full-time graduates. To this end, over 300 graduates are currently undergoing training at the bank's academy, recently accredited by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria.
Adamawa, Taraba, Gombe and Borno states may likely experience total blackouts if the management of Yola Electricity Distribution Company fails to meet the demands of its workforce. Deputy President of the Senior Staff of Electricity and Allied Company says the company has sacked staff indiscriminately without promotion and annual increments. He said his members' lives were challenged by dangerous environments that could be deadly.
This company YEDC, for the past 5 years, there is no condition of service. And you know, condition of service is the contractual agreement between employer and employee. No staff welfare, they are sacking staff the way they want, no promotion, no annual increment.
But the company says it is a private one, but under the Federal Ministry of Power, who appointed the managing director and chief executive. Series of petitions have been written against the managing director to graft agencies, but have not been found wanting.
It has started since 2015 when engineer Baba Umar Mustafa was posted to YEDC company to come and oversee the management and issues of the company. And since then, being the acting managing director, we have been following him to see whether our staff will have a leverage. At the LHM, we understand that he is adamant and he does not understand staff welfare.
As I'm talking to you, we have already put in measures in place to ensure that we engage the leaders of the union, the various unions, to ensure that our operations, our services continue, because this is very, very important.
While the company and the workers' because residents of Adamawa bear the brunt, they want a quick resolution to the issues and expect improvement in power supply.
The strike action will jeopardize a lot of things in Yola, especially those that rely on electricity. So we hope dialogue is the best answer. So we hope things will be normal or will normalize very soon.
The consequence of this development is that residents of these 4 states in the northeast may continue to groan under the weight of epileptic power and its attendant impacts on life and economy.
On the profile interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the Vice President of Public Service International, who also doubles up as the General Secretary of NASU. Comrade Peters Adeyemi spoke about the reason why PSI went out on the streets in Geneva, Switzerland to protest against tax injustice and privatization across the globe. We will be right back. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
A lot has happened since our last conversation in the global space, and recently during the ILO 108th conference, it was observed that the PSI had a protest. Can you tell us some of the reasons why it was of utmost importance for you to bring your issues to the global space?
Thank you very much. We had a protest, and that was to register our displeasure as a global trade union organization against the current policy of the Donald Trump administration in the United States of America, directed towards illegal migrants, which essentially separates the children from their parents. Quite a number of our members in the US and in Mexico appear to have been seriously affected by this policy. You have very young children who are denied parental care as a result of this policy. This policy has essentially destabilized families, and as a global trade union organization, we have to demonstrate to the world with a view to calling the attention of the American government to the fact that this policy is unjust, it's inhuman, and cannot be sustained. So the demonstration is essentially directed towards getting the Donald Trump administration in the US to reverse that negative policy so that those children that are affected by this negative policy can be reunited with their parents.
You are the International Vice President of PSI and the President in Africa. Can you tell us, I am aware that some of the issues that you've been actually fighting for is tax justice across the globe. Can you expatiate more on how tax justice can actually have positive effects on the workers globally?
If you look at the Thabo Mbeki report on illicit financial flow in Africa, several billions leave Africa every year as a result of illicit financial flow. And that can be essentially linked with the fact that the wealthy within the society don't pay tax or evade tax, or our government grants tax holidays. Irresponsible tax holidays are granted to individuals, corporate organizations, which impact negatively on the economy of the country. So the tax justice campaign in Africa is about the need for the governments in our continent to refocus on the need to generate more resources from those who currently evade tax and review their policies on granting irresponsible tax holidays to individuals and their companies. The campaign has been on, and we are still intensifying action on it. You see, if you find a situation where in Nigeria, for instance, you have an MTN and you are able to get them to pay what they are supposed to pay to the coffers of the government in terms of what is due as tax, and you have other multinational organizations, the size of the money you are going to generate from ensuring that those multinationals pay what they are supposed to pay will go a long way in assisting the government to fix education, fix health, fix infrastructure. And the burden on those that are the less privileged will be reduced. In quite a number of countries in Africa, you find that it is only the workers that are made to pay tax, whereas those who are in business, big business, evade tax. So this campaign is well grounded and is just to draw the attention of the governments in Africa that you can get money if you ensure that those who are supposed to pay tax pay, and you don't grant these tax holidays or just indiscriminately. That one is on, and then the PSI has been involved also in the campaign against this mentality of government has no business in business. Government has no business in business. Government must have business in business. Because if you look at it, in a country like Nigeria, where I come from, the environment is not conducive enough for you to say that every good things of life will be provided by the private sector. Because the dominant force in our economy today is the government. Even when you talk about the private sector, they take refuge under the government. Quite a number of those who have made it in the private sector in our economy today are people who draw incentives or who get patronages from the government.
The issue of privatization is a big issue, and aside the several positions that you actually hold in the PSI, you also are the General Secretary of NASU. Can you tell us how dear is it to the hearts of NASU in terms of ensuring that the campaign for privatization of universities would not be achieved by our own government?
What we are saying is that you can't say you will privatize education. If you privatize education, you take it away from the reach of the common people. There are a number of few universities in a number of African countries that are privatized, and that means that what they charge in those universities is clearly not within the affordability for those ordinary Nigerians. So it is, then you talk about privatizing healthcare services, then you find that quite a lot of underprivileged people within our society, within the continent, will die because they don't have the resources to look for quality medical care, which itself is a problem. And then you find a situation where governments in some African countries are even privatizing water. And there is this mentality that people try to create impression that okay, why don't we do a comparison between what happened in Africa and in Europe and maybe in other parts of the globe. I insist that that comparison cannot be made. It's unreasonable. The environment are not the same. If you look at what is paid, even to workers in a country like Nigeria, you find that that money that is paid to Nigerian workers hardly can even sustain them. But if let's take Geneva for instance. If in Geneva here you probably, except you want to display opulence and you want to show off that you have money and resources, you don't need to drive your car here because the mass transit works efficiently. When you get in here, you check into your hotel, they give you a ticket which takes you for the period you stay. You don't really need, and the vehicles are as beautiful and as comfortable, even more than your cars. And then you find everywhere you go, you either go by bus or by train, and everything is timed, it's well done. And then you talk about energy, lights. Most Nigerians have to use almost half of their resources to buy fuel. So if you privatize education and Nigerians have to contend with the prevailing situation where they use quite a sizable percentage of their salary in buying fuel, in providing security, in providing some basic amenities that ought to be provided by government, then clearly we are going to be in serious trouble. So there is no way That's why this campaign is on seriously in Africa, that you cannot privatize education because you take it away from the reach of the common people.
So we also have water, we also have power being privatized. How does this affect us as a people or the working class?
Absolutely. So that is why we have decided that this is a battle that we have to fight. We have to ensure it is nonsensical to say that government institution doesn't work. Government institution works. I insist that as we speak today, we still have quite a number. Look at Kenya Airways. It's running. Ethiopian Airways is running. And these are government outfits. South African Airways is running. So it doesn't make sense for us to say that government institutions doesn't run. They do. It all depends on the type of management that you put in place. You cannot completely disown all of the public institutions that we have under the guise of privatization. Because at the end of the day, what is going to happen is that you put the wealth of our country in the hands of few individuals under the guise of encouraging private investors to drive the economy. By the time you do that, in a country where the mass populace, the majority of the people in our country are poverty-ridden, it's only in Nigeria that you can pay somebody 18,000 a month. 18,000 naira a month today, arithmetically, is about $50. Even the one that we are celebrating, which has not come to the pockets of Nigerians, the 30,000 naira minimum wage is not up to $100. Because if you do the arithmetical exchange rate in Nigeria today, $100 is about 36,000 naira. So, and if you also look at it, so it means that our people don't have that resource base, the resource capacity, matched with the collapse of infrastructure. Light is not there. Because if there is light, then quite a lot of people can go into the informal sector and make money. The light is not there. So Nigerians are agonizing because the resources available to them is clearly insufficient. So the issue of privatization is a major agenda which we are determined to continue to pursue.
In Africa and across the globe, unionization is a basic right or a fundamental human right across the globe, and even according to the ILO conventions, every worker deserves the right to be unionized. So far, even with the advocacy on ground, we still have so many institutions, both public and private, that refuse workers the right to belong or associate. What's your take on this?
This is something that is supposed to be automatic. It's not supposed to be controversial, because you have the ILO Convention 87 on freedom of association. Even a country, Nigeria, has provision in its constitution that guarantees freedom of association, freedom to belong to trade unions. Quite a number of countries in Africa also have similar provisions. Some of the countries in Africa have also ratified ILO Convention 87 on the right to freedom of association, freedom to unionize. But unfortunately, we find that we still have a large chunk of employers of labor in Nigeria and within Africa that have refused to allow for unionization. And that is for them to be able to operate just the way they like. No pay whatever they like as wages to workers, and undermine the right of the workers in the workplace. I still come back to Nigeria again. As we speak today, we have numerous federal universities that have been given licenses to operate in our country. But none of them have allowed for unionization. They have refused. In fact, the most astonishing and the most embarrassing thing is that they include in their letters of appointment that the workers of those universities cannot join trade union. It is part of their condition of service that you cannot belong to a trade union, if whether you are a member of ASU, NASU, NAT, or SANU. So what we ask, and that's a direct infringement on Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that guarantee freedom of association and the right to belong to the trade unions. And we are astonished about the fact that these institutions are institutions that are licensed by the government. And so it's expected that the provisions of in the constitution of our country should be binding on them. But again, it's also surprising that even the Federal Ministry of Education, that is supposed to ensure that the rights of the workers are protected by these universities, have turned their eye the other way. For me, I also don't know what the Federal Ministry of Labor is also doing on this, because this is a clear violation of the rights of the Nigerian workers who are engaged in those universities, and there are so many, owned by those who have had the privilege of running the affairs of our country. You had a former president, a former vice president. These are people that are supposed to be law-abiding. So if the institutions or outfits established by them don't respect the law, what do? Then who calls them to order? The question is, who calls a former head of state or a former vice president to order? Those are the intricacies that you find in this situation, which is appalling. So the level of impunity that has been exercised by employers of labor in Nigeria and other parts of Africa on direct infringement on the right to unionize is humongous, is big. And the PSR is challenging this every day. We are challenging this every day. In Nigeria, we have made up our mind to take some of those vice chancellors and governing councils of those universities to court, to challenge them as to what right do they have to stop workers in those institutions from unionizing. So it's a major issue, and we are fighting them.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember, labor creates wealth.